and tapped at it with annoyance. What do you mean by support here? That's rather vague, don't you think? After you've rebuilt from this disaster, we might at some point in the future have need of supplies from your humble station, replied the wolf. We will only take what we need and nothing you can't bear to part with. Elder Meese eased through his teeth and spoke through his vocoder. Those are incredibly vague terms. How do we know you won't decide you need the entirety of our hydroponics harvest or all of our ships? The Nebula Company at least demanded specific tribute for their protection racket. Princeps turned to his secretary. The Nebula Company? He asked. I paused for a few moments. Horizon presumed she was consulting some sort of internal database. But before the bird could answer, Horizon interjected with her own response. They're one of the bigger pirate clans out there wandering the void. Somehow they got hold of a Federal Guard base ship and like to use its mass drivers to extort belter habs. My reports indicate that they're descended from a mercenary company that was contracted to the old federal emissary to Thierry for peacekeeping in the outer system, I chimed in. After contact was lost with Alpha Centauri, a division of the Federal Guard stationed here defected to them and took their equipment with them, including a base ship, though there's little to no information on how operational it is. Moline grumbled. 120 years ago, they showed up on our doorstep and started demanding food and minerals from us. Or else. They came back every 8 years to extort us again, demanding more and more each time. 15 years ago, a bunch of us decided we'd had enough and rigged up an improvised railgun and put a sizable hole in their hull. And then they backed off. I blinked a few times, doing the math in her head. You said this was 15 years ago, and they came back on an 8-year cycle. Did they return 7 years ago? Yes, the colonel confirmed. Me and the rest of the militia used up the minerals we would have given them on building more railguns and magnetic shield generators. We exchanged a few rounds of fire, and they decided to leave us alone. Princeps' eyes lit up. Is it possible that their agents could have sabotaged your station and kidnapped my pilot? That would explain where they got those suits, Horizon chimed in. I've never seen anything like those before. 300-year-old FedTech would make sense. I suspected as such, Moline added. Though now that I think about it, if anyone in this system might be able to pose as representatives of some sort of resurrected federation, it would be them. Come now, Sully, Meese replied. If Nebula could do what we saw this little ship do outside our station, they would have used it more directly. Princeps stared at them, evaluating his options. Is there anything we could do to convince you that we weren't aligned with these raiders? He finally asked. Yes, vocalized Elder Meese. Grandson, do you have the data on the Nebula Company's prior tributes? As his assistant unfolded a tablet and started scrolling through it for the data indicated, the Elder continued. If you destroy the Nebula base ship, we will sign your treaty, but we will amend it to specify material assistance not exceeding half the lowest amount we ever paid to Nebula. Princeps read the figures and thought about it for less than a minute. Those terms are acceptable. 12 hours later, the Resolution departed Stoughton space. Horizon exited her medical tube, with no bent ribs this time, and headed to the conference room in person wearing the new jumpsuit Metrat had made her. Gradually the whole crew filed in, Metrat dashing in last. An elongated spheroid rotated in the air above the table. Horizon recognized it instantly, as did the opossum, apparently. Metrat blanched at the sight of the old Federation ship. "We're not actually attacking that thing, are we?" "Why not?" Princeps asked. The dyes now washed out of his fur and back to his normal gray coat. The engineer mentally manipulated the table's hologram. A representation of the resolution appeared next to Nebula's spaceship. "This is us, you see?" And the new ship shrank until it was 1/100th the size of the older one. "And that's us to scale." Lift raised an eyebrow. "That thing's huge. You sure it's not a space habitat?" "That's essentially what it is," Metrat confirmed. "A cylinder habitat with a conversion drive stuffed up its tail hole. It's intended less as a spaceship and more as a mobile home base and shipyard for thousands of Federal Guardsmen on century-long tours of duty. They built them by melting in whole asteroids, the kind of ostentatious display of wealth that only the old Federation could manage." "Size is not everything, though," Princeps retorted. "Their technology is centuries behind that at our disposal. You said yourself that they rely on a reaction drive." He said those last words as if it were as hideously outdated simply by the entry of the resolution into the system. "That's just the thing," Matrat objected. "Their drive flume is as wide as our ship. They could blast us to monatomic plasma with their backblast alone." The wolf grinned and turned smugly to the crew's raccoon pilot. "Horizon, care to share that theory you shared earlier?" Horizon cleared her throat with a hint of nervousness. "It's just a hypothesis, really, but I took a look at their route here." She focused, and the holograms of the two ships were replaced with a map of the Tiare system with a long oval path traced from the outer system past the star and back. They followed this comet-style elliptical orbit for nearly 2 centuries without deviation. Even when they skirmished with another pirate clan or fought with a rebellious habitat like Stoughton, they kept on moving and broke off the attack when they were out of range. "And why might they do this, Pirate Lotaire?" Eye in the Sky asked with cold patience. "I had a hypothesis. The giant planets and the star in the Tiare system were highlighted in blue. They're slingshotting, coasting without power with the aid of the system's biggest gravity wells. I don't think their conversion drive is operational. Do you have any more evidence to support this hypothesis?" Matrat asked skeptically. "You mean aside from the fact that they haven't ditched this trash-heap system for more fertile grounds?" Horizon retorted. Metrat nodded once. "I'll give you that, but it's still conjecture. And even if so, they've still got a ton of conventional weapons and a small armada to use them. Sure, we can maneuver like nothing else, and our gravitational shields are equally effective against beam and kinetic weaponry. But they've got enough guns to smear us before they get in range of our gravitic weaponry. Surely you can think of a way to extend the range of our weapons, can't you?" Princeps grinned with amusement. "Oh, please," the opossum said, exasperated. "The gravity generators are based on physics centuries, no, millennia ahead of my own understanding. And all the ship's information on them is beyond my clearance. All I know is a bunch of 20 cubic meter black boxes somehow manipulate dark energy." Metrat's eyes lit up as those last words escaped his lips. "Wait, that might fit. Would need a power supply, maybe the HAV's reactor." His gaze unfocused for a few minutes, and when he was back with them, he had a smile that almost reached up to his ears. If you can grant me access to a few spets, I just might have a solution.